Thaddeus Boone was 42 years old, and for 11 years he let his wife believe he was nobody special. A logistics coordinator, modest car, off-the-rack suits, a man who worked too much and dressed like it. Priscilla never questioned it, never asked why the garage door stayed shut during his phone calls. That Tuesday night, over dinner, she looked at him and said the words that would end everything. "You're just too embarrassing to bring around people who matter, Thaddeus. I can't do it this time." She meant her sister's wedding, Turks and Caicos, wealthy in-laws who couldn't know a man like him. The next morning, on her forgotten tablet, Thaddeus found the itinerary. 2 first-class tickets, 1 hotel room, 1 bed, and a name that wasn't his beside hers. He didn't confront her, didn't raise his voice. He simply closed the tablet, picked up his phone, and made a single call that would change everything. But neither Priscilla nor the man beside her had any idea who they were about to face. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The shipping manifest was 47 pages long. Thaddeus had it open on his phone, scrolling through container weights and port clearance codes with his thumb, when he heard Priscilla's car pull into the driveway. He closed the app in one quick move, set the phone face down on the kitchen table like it was nothing, like it had always been nothing. Across from him, Faye sat hunched over a worksheet, her pencil scratching slow and careful across the page. She was working on fractions. She'd been stuck on the same problem for 10 minutes, and Thaddeus had been about to help her when the headlights swept across the kitchen window. "Dad," Faye said, not looking up. "What's 3/8 plus 1/4? "Find the common denominator first," he said quietly. "What do both numbers share?" She chewed the eraser. 8? There you go. The front door opened hard. Priscilla came in the way she always did when a showing had gone badly. Heels loud on the tile, blazer half off one shoulder, the particular tight look around her mouth that meant someone had wasted her time. She dropped her bag on the counter without a word, opened the fridge, stared into it like it had personally failed her. "Long day?" Thaddeus asked. The Harmon couple backed out. She grabbed a water bottle and shut the fridge with her hip. "Third time this month someone's walked a showing at the last minute. I had that house staged. I had flowers on the table." "I'm sorry." She looked at him, then at the stove. "Did you cook?" "Pasta. It's staying warm." She set down her water bottle and disappeared down the hall. "No, thank you." No acknowledgement that he'd had dinner ready. Just the sound of her heels on hardwood, then the bedroom door clicking shut. Faye looked up at him. He smiled at her. "Eight's right," he said. "Keep going." The house was modest, but clean. That was the word for it. Modest. The kind of suburban home where everything worked, but nothing impressed. Vinyl siding the color of old cream. A garage that held one car and a lot of boxes. Carpet in the bedrooms that had seen better years. Thaddeus's beat-up gray sedan sat in the driveway next to Priscilla's leased SUV like an apology. His good suit, the only one she'd seen, hung by the front door on a hook, off-the-rack navy from a department store. The kind of suit a man wore to job interviews and funerals. That was the picture. That was what Priscilla saw when she looked at their life. Thaddeus had let her see it for 11 years. Dinner was quiet for the first few minutes. Faye talked about her worksheet. Thaddeus asked follow-up questions. Priscilla ate and scrolled her phone, and somewhere around the second helping she put it down and started talking about the wedding. "Odessa's venue coordinator emailed me today," she said. "The rehearsal dinner is at this open-air place right on the water. The Vance family is flying in with their own event planner. She said it the way people talk about things that both impress and irritate them. Marcus's mother apparently hired someone from New York." "Sounds beautiful," Thaddeus said. "It's a lot. It's a lot of people with a lot of money. And everything is going to be photographed. And she pressed 2 fingers to her temple. I need it to go perfectly. I could come. He said it simply. No pressure in it. Help cover some of the costs. Odessa's your only sister. Priscilla looked at him. It wasn't a warm look. Thaddeus, she set her fork down. You're just too embarrassing to bring around people who matter. I can't do it this time. The words landed flat, casual, the way you'd say we're out of coffee or the dry cleaning's ready. Like she'd thought it so many times that saying it out loud was just catching up to what was already decided. Faye went very still. Thaddeus looked at his daughter's face, that small, confused hurt moving through it like a cloud, and felt something shift behind his ribs. Not rage, something quieter than rage and twice as heavy. He picked up his plate. Then Faye's, then Priscilla's, without being asked. Okay, he said. That was all. He carried the dishes to the sink and washed them with the water running warm. And he did not slam anything. And he did not raise his voice, and his hands stayed steady the whole time. Later, after Faye was in bed and the house had gone dark and quiet, he stood in the garage. The sedan sat to his left, the boxes to his right. A single overhead bulb made everything look yellow and small. His phone buzzed. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Boone. The voice on the other end was crisp, professional. Rotterdam cleared the manifest this afternoon. We're looking at full dock confirmation by Thursday. The Q3 numbers are going to come in close to 1.4 billion, Thaddeus said. Yes, sir. Good. Send the summary to Desmond. He hung up, stood there a moment in the yellow light. Then he went back inside. Priscilla was on the couch. Her phone was in her hand, screen facing up. And in the half-second before she flipped it over and pressed it to her thigh, Thaddeus saw the notification banner clearly. Travel itinerary. Providenciales. Her eyes met his. Something quick and guilty moved through them. Just work stuff, she said. The tablet was on the kitchen counter, propped against the fruit bowl. Priscilla had left in a hurry. Open house at 9, traffic on the 40, her coffee still sitting half full on the edge of the sink. She'd grabbed her keys, grabbed her blazer, kissed Faye on the top of the head without slowing down, and was gone before the garage door finished closing. The tablet sat there, screen dark, charging cable still plugged in. Thaddeus stood at the stove, stirring oatmeal for Faye, and did not think about it for the first few minutes. He thought about Faye's lunch instead, whether there was enough of the good bread left, whether she needed a permission slip signed for something. Can I have brown sugar? Faye asked, appearing in the kitchen doorway in her socks, backpack already on, the way she always wore it too early. It's on the table. She padded over and sat down, pulled the sugar toward her like it might escape. Thaddeus set the bowl in front of her and poured himself a cup of coffee. Then he turned to the counter to look for the permission slip he thought he'd seen yesterday. He moved the fruit bowl. The tablet screen lit up from the nudge. He almost didn't look. He almost just picked up the permission slip, which was right there, tucked under the bowl's edge, and moved on. But the screen was already bright, already open, already showing Priscilla's email, synced and unlocked, the way it always was at home because she'd never bothered to set a code on it. The subject line sat right there at the top of the inbox. Booking confirmation. Turks and Caicos, Grace Bay. 2 adults. He looked at Faye. She was eating, head down, drawing something in the margin of her permission slip with her finger, not paying attention. He picked up the tablet. The itinerary was clean and detailed the way travel confirmations always are. Every line matter of fact. Every line hitting him like a door closing somewhere deep in his chest. 2 tickets. First class. Both. Departing Friday morning. Passenger 1. Boone, Priscilla M., passenger. 2. Pace, Reginald A. He read the second name twice. Reginald Pace. He didn't know the name. He turned it over in his mind and came up with nothing. No face, No context. No memory of Priscilla ever mentioning anyone by that name. He scrolled down. Hotel confirmation. Grace Bay Resort. One of the private ones with the outdoor pools and the overwater views he'd seen in a magazine once. 4 nights, 1 king bed. A note in the reservation. Anniversary package. Champagne on arrival. He set the tablet down. Then he picked it up again. There was an email below the confirmation. A forwarded text chain, sent to herself the way people do when they want to save something, but don't think about the trail they're leaving. He opened it. The messages were warm in the way messages between people who believe they're hidden always are. Easy, comfortable. I cannot wait to finally get away together. And then Priscilla's response. Me neither. No interruptions. No excuses. A laughing emoji. Then, he's not coming anyway. He'd just embarrass me. Thaddeus read that last line twice. He'd embarrass her. He stood in his own kitchen, in the house he paid for quietly and completely, and read the words his wife had typed to the man she was taking to her sister's wedding in his place. He let the full shape of it settle over him. Not just the affair. Not just the replacement, but the specific satisfaction in how she'd written it. He'd just embarrass me, like he was a problem she'd already solved. He put the tablet back where he found it, adjusted the fruit bowl so it sat the same way it had before. Dad, Faye held up the permission slip. Can you sign this? Yeah, baby. His voice came out even. Bring it here. He walked her to school the long way. 2 extra blocks through the neighborhood, where the old oak trees made a roof over the sidewalk and everything smelled like cut grass and morning. Faye talked about her teacher and a girl in her class who had a lunchbox shaped like a watermelon. And Thaddeus listened to every word, and his hands stayed in his jacket pockets, and his face stayed calm. He kissed the top of her head at the school gate, watched her disappear through the double doors. Then he walked back to the car, sat in the driver's seat, did not start the engine. He gave himself 60 seconds. Then he took out his phone and called Desmond. Desmond picked up on the second ring, the way he always did. Morning. I need you to do 2 things, Thaddeus said. Go ahead. Prep the jet. He paused for just a moment. And clear my schedule for the wedding weekend. Turks and Caicos. A brief silence on the other end. The kind that wasn't surprise, exactly, but was Desmond making sure he'd heard correctly. The Gulf Stream? Desmond said. Yes. I'll handle it quietly, Desmond said. The resort sat at the edge of Grace Bay like something out of a dream somebody else was having. White stone pathways, palm trees that moved slow and easy in the salt air. The kind of place where the staff knew your name before you reached the front desk, and the water in the distance was so blue it looked painted. Priscilla walked through the lobby with her chin up. She had on a cream linen dress and new sandals, and she moved through the space like she belonged in it, one hand resting lightly on Reginald's arm. Reginald, for his part, looked exactly the way Reginald always looked. Pressed white shirt, easy smile, the kind of comfortable confidence that read as charm until you watched it long enough to see it was something else. He held the door. He tipped the bellman with a 20 he'd borrowed from Priscilla 3 days before. This is incredible, he said, turning slowly in the lobby, taking in the high ceilings and the open-air design and the view of the water through the far archway. I told you, Priscilla said, and she smiled the way she only smiled when Thaddeus wasn't around. Wide, easy, like something tight in her chest had finally loosened. The rehearsal dinner was on the lawn, string lights above round tables draped in white cloth, torches along the water's edge, a jazz trio playing something soft near the bar. Odessa's new in-laws, the Vance side, the money side, the side Priscilla had spent 11 years trying to impress through association, mingled between the tables with their champagne glasses and their easy laughter. Odessa herself moved through the crowd in a yellow sundress, glowing the way people glow the night before the thing they've been hoping for finally happens. She touched arms, laughed too loud at a joke near the bar, circled back to find her mother. Reginald worked the room with the skill of someone who had done it many times before. He found Odessa's future father-in-law, a man named Gerald Vance, who'd made most of his money in import logistics, and fell into conversation with him easily. He dropped terms, asked careful questions, laughed at the right moments. Gerald Vance, who was not an easy man to warm, laughed twice. Priscilla watched from across the lawn and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Satisfied. She reached for a second glass of champagne from a passing tray. Nobody here was wondering where Thaddeus was. Nobody here was making that polite, slightly confused face at his wrinkled blazer or his habit of going quiet in conversations he found unimportant. She could just be Priscilla. She could just stand here in this dress, in this place, and not manage anything. She exhaled slowly. Willaboon sat at a small table near the back edge of the lawn, beneath a coconut palm, partially shaded, completely overlooked. She had a glass of sparkling water and a small plate of fruit, and she had been watching for 40 minutes without appearing to watch anything at all. She was 71 years old, sharp as a paper cut, and very, very good at being invisible when she wanted to be. She watched Reginald work Gerald Vance's handshake. She watched Priscilla's shoulders drop 2 inches the moment Reginald got the laugh. She picked up a piece of mango and ate it slowly, and did not look at her watch, because she already knew what time it was. The sound came from the north, a low whine first, climbing fast. Then the full-throated roar of jet engines coming in low over the water, and a few guests turned their heads toward the sound before it was even close enough to see. The Gulf Stream came in clean over the bay, banking once, the evening light catching the white fuselage and the dark lettering along the tail. BHH 01, Boone Harbor Holding. It descended fast and smooth toward the resort's private airstrip, visible just past the north tree line, and hit the runway with a sound that rolled across the lawn like quiet thunder. The jazz trio stopped. Not because anyone told them to, they just stopped. Everyone was already looking. The engines wound down. The staircase deployed. And after a moment, unhurried, deliberate, the way a man moves when he has nothing to prove and everything already settled, Thaddeus Boone stepped off the plane. Tailored ivory linen suit, dark sunglasses, no luggage he was carrying himself. He stood at the base of the stairs and looked toward the lawn with the calm expression of a man arriving exactly where he intended to be. Odessa saw him first. Her hand went to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. She made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost something else entirely. Across the lawn, Priscilla's face was still mid-smile, still turned up toward Reginald, still suspended in the moment just before. Then she followed everyone else's gaze toward the airstrip. The smile didn't fall. It just stopped, like a clock that had run out of seconds. Reginald looked too. His easy expression flickered once, very briefly, like a light with a loose wire. Thaddeus walked across the grass toward them, slow, even, the tail number still visible behind him in the last of the evening light. He stopped a few feet away. "You said I'd embarrass you." His voice was calm and quiet, the kind of quiet that carries. "I just wanted to see your face when you found out how." Silence fell over the entire rehearsal dinner. The silence didn't last long. Someone at the bar coughed. The jazz trio found their place again, starting soft and uncertain. A few of the Vance family guests turned back to their tables with the careful, polite discretion of people who'd been raised not to stare. But Priscilla had not been raised that way, and she was not being polite. She closed the distance between them in 6 fast steps, her champagne glass still in her hand. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "Outside. Now." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned and walked toward the water's edge, past the torches, past the last round table, until the lawn gave way to a narrow stretch of pale sand. and the sound of small waves. Thaddeus followed, unhurried. She turned on him the second he reached her. "What is this?" Her voice was low and tight. "Whose plane is that, Thaddeus? Who did you borrow that from?" "I didn't borrow it." "Then what?" She stopped, looked at him, then back toward the airstrip, where the Gulf Stream sat quiet and enormous against the darkening sky. "That doesn't make any sense." "I know." "Stop doing that." Her jaw tightened. "Stop talking like that. Just explain to me what's going on." He looked at her for a moment. The torchlight moved across his face. His expression didn't. "Enjoy the dinner, Priscilla. Thaddeus, Odessa's waiting on you." He said it easily, without edge, the way you'd remind someone of something they'd simply forgotten. Then he turned and walked back up the lawn. She stood there in the sand with her champagne glass and her cream linen dress, and no answer to hold on to. Odessa found him near the bar. She touched his elbow first, lightly, the way you touch a person when you're not sure they want to be touched. He turned. She looked up at him with an expression he wasn't used to seeing directed at him from Priscilla's family. Open, careful, a little ashamed. "Walk with me a minute," she said. They moved away from the crowd, toward the quieter end of the lawn, where the string lights thinned out, and the palms stood dark against the sky. Odessa crossed her arms, not cold, but like she was holding herself steady. "I owe you an apology," she said. Thaddeus waited. "I've let Priscilla tell me things about you for years." She kept her eyes forward, toward the water. "That you didn't want to come to things, that you thought family events were a waste of money, that you made it hard for her." She exhaled through her nose. "I listened. I didn't push back. I should have." He said nothing. "My mother's 65th birthday dinner. 2 years ago. She told us you refused to come because you thought the restaurant was too expensive." Odessa's voice stayed even, but something underneath it wasn't. "My cousin's baby shower last spring. She said you told her it wasn't worth making the drive." She paused. "Did she ever even tell you about those things?" Thaddeus was quiet for a beat. "No," he said. Odessa closed her eyes for just a second, opened them again. "I didn't think so." Her voice came out smaller now. "I kept wondering, because it never quite added up. The way you were in person was never what she described. But she's my sister. So I told myself I was only seeing one side." He looked out at the water. The bay was almost black now, the moon laying a long, pale stripe across it. He thought about the birthday dinner he never knew existed, the baby shower, the years of careful, quiet management Priscilla had done to keep him at the edges of this family. Not because he didn't belong, but because she needed them to believe that he didn't. The anger was there. He could feel it, low and steady, like a current running under still water. He didn't show it. "It's a beautiful night," he said. "You're going to have a perfect wedding." Odessa looked at him. Her eyes were glassy, not quite crying, but close. "I never fully believed her version," she said. "I want you to know that. I hoped it wasn't true." She paused. "I'm glad you came." He nodded once. "Me too." Later, when the rehearsal dinner had wound down and the last of the Vance family had drifted inside, Thaddeus sat alone on the small balcony of his room. The bay glittered below. Somewhere down the hall he could hear voices. Priscilla's, low and quick. Reginald's murmur answering. He picked up his phone. Desmond answered on the second ring. "You're in," Desmond said. It wasn't a question. "I'm in." Thaddeus leaned forward, elbows on the railing. "Reginald Pace. I need everything before tomorrow morning. Whatever he's done, whoever he's done it to. Don't leave anything out." "Already started," Desmond said. "I'll have something for you by 6. "Good." He looked out at the water. "Don't miss anything." The pool was long and pale blue, ringed with white lounge chairs and low palm trees that barely moved in the morning air. The sun was already bright at 7:30. The water was flat and clear. Thaddeus sat at the far end of the deck, away from the breakfast buffet, away from the clusters of wedding guests drifting out in linen shirts and sandals. He had a cup of black coffee and his phone, and nothing else. Across the pool, maybe 40 feet away, Priscilla and Reginald sat together at a small table under a large umbrella. She had a mimosa. He had fresh fruit and a newspaper he wasn't reading. They both wore sunglasses, and they both kept those sunglasses pointed in every direction except toward Thaddeus. He watched them without appearing to. The phone buzzed in his hand. "Desmond," he answered. "Tell me," Thaddeus said. Desmond's voice was the same as always, steady. No drama, just information, laid out the way a doctor reads a chart. Facts first, implications after. Reginald Pace, 38. No fixed employer for the past 4 years. Before that, a short run in event production that ended when a business partner filed a civil complaint. Nothing prosecuted. A brief pause. The interesting part is recent. Go ahead. 18 months ago, he began a relationship with a woman named Harriet Elms in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her family made their money in commercial real estate. Old money, conservative, very well connected. Desmond let that sit for a second. Within 6 months, Reginald had proposed a joint business venture. A creative agency, branding, events, that kind of thing. Harriet's attorneys flagged the paperwork as irregular, but she overruled them. Thaddeus said nothing. He kept his eyes on the pool. A little girl was splashing in the shallow end while her father watched from the steps. She wired him $230,000 over a 3-month period, Desmond continued. Business startup funds, living expenses, a trip they took together to Portugal. Another pause. 6 weeks after the last transfer, Reginald stopped returning her calls. No business had been formed. No funds were recoverable. He had, for all practical purposes, vanished. And now he's here, Thaddeus said. Now he's here, seated next to your wife, at a resort full of people attending the wedding of her sister, who is marrying into the Vance family. Desmond's tone didn't change. Thaddeus, the Vance family's freight contracts alone are, I know what they're worth. A brief silence. Harriet Elms is actively pursuing legal action, Desmond said. Fraud. Her attorney is a woman named Cecily Marsh, based in Charlotte. I have the contact. Thaddeus set his coffee cup down. He looked across the pool again. Reginald had leaned in close to say something to Priscilla. She laughed softly, her hand touching his arm. She looked relaxed, comfortable, like a woman who believed the hardest part of the weekend was already behind her. She had no idea what was sitting across that pool. Neither did Reginald. He's not here for Priscilla, Thaddeus said. It wasn't a question. He said it slowly, like he was hearing it out loud for the first time, even though some part of him had already known it since last night. She got him in the door. That's all she was for. That's my read, Desmond said. He moved quickly once the wedding was announced. The in-laws were mentioned by name in a text recovered through Harriet Elms's discovery process, a text he sent to a third party after meeting Priscilla. Thaddeus was quiet. He thought about Priscilla, her ambition, her hunger for rooms like this one, the resort, the white chairs, the old money drifting through the breakfast line. She thought she'd found someone who matched that hunger, someone sharp and charming who wanted the same things she did. She had found someone who wanted those things. She just wasn't the one he'd planned to take them from. He almost felt something close to pity. Almost. 2 things, Thaddeus said. Forward everything you have to Cecily Marsh, the pattern, the documentation, his current location. Let her do what she needs to do. Done by noon, Desmond said. And the accounts. He kept his voice low and even. The authorized user status, the joint cards, the access she has on anything tied to my name. I want that paperwork finalized today. It's been drafted for 3 days, Desmond said. I was waiting for your word. You have it. Understood. A short pause. Anything else? Thaddeus looked out at the pool, at the little girl in the shallow end, at the flat, bright water and the clear morning sky above it. Not yet, he said. He ended the call. He set the phone face down on the small table beside him. He picked up his coffee and took a slow sip. Across the pool, Reginald reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind Priscilla's ear. She smiled at him. Thaddeus watched. His face was still. His eyes were calm. He looked like a man enjoying a quiet morning by the water. Willa Boone did not travel light. She came through the resort's main entrance at 2:30 with a rolling carry-on, a large tote bag on one shoulder, a hat box in her free hand, and Faye running ahead of her by about 20 feet, already scanning the lobby with wide, excited eyes. Thaddeus saw them from the open-air corridor above the main pool. He was already moving toward the stairs before Faye spotted him. "Daddy!" She said it the way kids say things when they've been holding them in for too long. Loud, bright, like releasing a breath. She crossed the marble floor at a full sprint, and he caught her at the bottom of the steps, lifting her once before setting her down and crouching to her level. "Hey, Bug," he said. She grabbed his face with both hands, the way she'd done since she was 3, checking, making sure he was really there. "You're here," she said. "Grandma Willa said you'd be here, but I didn't know for sure." "I'm here," he said. "I told you I would be." She pulled him into a hug, her small arms tight around his neck. Over her shoulder, Willa arrived at a comfortable pace, unhurried, hat box swinging. She looked at the two of them with an expression that was almost satisfied, though she kept it restrained. She met Thaddeus's eyes and gave one short nod. He nodded back. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the pool. Faye wanted to swim, so they swam. She had things to tell him. A loose tooth, a project about rivers she'd done at school, a joke she'd heard from a boy in her class that she couldn't quite remember correctly, but told anyway, getting the punchline wrong, laughing at herself when she did. He laughed too. For a stretch of time, long enough to matter, the resort and the weekend and all of it fell back to the edges, and it was just the two of them in the pale blue water. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and he carried her through the shallow end, while she pointed at things. A bird on the far railing. A cloud shaped like a dog, maybe. A couple near the bar who were, in her assessment, extremely boring-looking. He listened to all of it. Around 4 o'clock, they sat on the steps in the shallow end, shoulders above the water, the sun lower now and less sharp. Faye leaned against him, a little tired from the swimming, her head resting on his arm. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "How come you never come to the nice things?" Thaddeus stilled. He kept his voice easy. "What do you mean?" "Like this." She gestured at the resort, the pool, the whole of it. "Mommy said you don't love us enough to come to stuff like this." She said it simply. No malice. She was 9. She was just repeating the words she'd been handed and carrying them in her chest like they were simply true. She said that's just how you are. He didn't move. He didn't change his face. Inside, something cracked clean through. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a clean, quiet break. The way a weight-bearing beam sounds before it gives. It wasn't just the words. It was imagining how many times Priscilla had said them. How many ordinary evenings. How many small conversations. How many moments when Faye was just sitting nearby the way kids do, absorbing the air in a room. How many times she had heard her father described as a man who didn't love them enough, and how long she'd been carrying that. He put his arm around her and pulled her a little closer. "I love you more than anything on this earth," he said. His voice was steady. He made sure of that. "I've always come when I could, and I'm here right now." "I know," Faye said quietly. "I can tell." "Good," he said. "Don't forget that part." She leaned her head back against his arm. They sat there together in the water, until she was ready to get out. He smiled at her the whole time. After Faye was fed and settled in Willa's suite, Willa found Thaddeus on the narrow balcony overlooking the water. He had a glass of water he hadn't touched. The sun was almost down. She didn't sit. She stood beside him, looked out at the water, and waited exactly as long as she felt like waiting, which wasn't long. "She told that child you don't love her enough," Willa said. "I know." "Not once." Willa's voice was flat and sharp, the way it got when she was past the point of softening things. "That girl said it like it was old news, like she's been hearing it for years." "I know, Willa." "Then you know what time it is." She turned and looked at him directly. "You have protected that woman's comfort for 11 years, Thaddeus. You kept yourself small so she wouldn't feel small. And the whole time, she was making sure your own daughter thought less of you. She let that land. Tomorrow is the last morning you let her keep that story. Let the truth come out. All of it. No more waiting." Thaddeus looked out at the darkening water. He didn't argue. The welcome reception was held on the resort's lower terrace, just above the beach. String lights ran between the posts. The tables were covered in white linen. Somewhere, a steel drum player worked through something soft and easy, and the warm air smelled like salt and flowers, and the kind of money that didn't need to announce itself. Thaddeus arrived alone, unhurried, a fresh glass of sparkling water in hand. He had changed into a light gray shirt, open at the collar, and dark slacks. Simple, deliberate. He looked like a man who had nowhere to be except exactly where he was. Odessa found him within the first 10 minutes. She was happy. It was her wedding weekend, and it showed. The tension from the rehearsal dinner had dissolved into something looser and warmer now, and she moved through the terrace the way people do when the night is theirs. She pulled Thaddeus by the arm toward a cluster of her soon-to-be in-laws. Her fiancé's father, a broad man with a silver watch and a firm handshake, and 2 cousins who worked in the family operation. "This is Thaddeus Boone," Odessa said, and her voice carried the particular warmth of someone correcting a long injustice. "He's Priscilla's husband, and he runs Boone Harbor Holdings." The fiancé's father, whose name was Gerald, went still for just a moment. Then he extended his hand again, differently this time, more carefully. "Boone Harbor," Gerald said. "We move about 30% of our dry cargo through Boone Harbor on the Gulf routes." "I know," Thaddeus said simply. He shook the hand. "Good routes." Gerald laughed, a little surprised. The cousins leaned in. It spread from there the way things spread at small gatherings, quietly at first. A word here, a clarification there. By the time the second round of drinks came around, the shape of the evening had shifted. People Thaddeus had never met were finding ways to stand near him. Reginald heard it from across the terrace. Thaddeus didn't see the exact moment it happened, but he noticed the result. Reginald had been working the edge of Gerald's family group with the easy, practiced warmth of a man who had done this many times before. Laughing at the right moments, asking questions designed to flatter. Then someone said, "Boone Harbor," and Reginald's laugh went a beat too long, and his eyes cut sideways across the terrace to find Thaddeus. Found him. Reginald's expression reset fast. He was good at that, but not fast enough. He made his way over 7 minutes later. Thaddeus counted. "Thaddeus." Reginald extended a hand. His grip was warm, practiced. His smile landed just right. Friendly, a little sheepish, designed to signal that he understood things were complicated. "I feel like we've been circling each other all weekend. I'm Reginald." "I know who you are," Thaddeus said. He shook the hand. His own face gave nothing. "Listen," Reginald said, lowering his voice slightly, like they were 2 reasonable men finding a private moment. "I know this whole situation is—" "It's a nice party," Thaddeus said. Reginald paused. Yeah, it is." He tried another angle. "Odessa's people are great." Gerald was telling me they run a big operation. Logistics? Distribution? Sounds like you two might have some overlap. Some, Thaddeus said. Small world. Reginald smiled. Funny how things connect. Funny, Thaddeus agreed. He took a sip of his water and looked out toward the beach. Calm. Perfectly pleasant. A man at a party enjoying a party. He let the silence sit. Reginald had no way to read him. That was the point. He tried once more. Something about the resort. Something about the weekend. And Thaddeus answered each one with the same even, polite nothing. After 3 minutes, Reginald excused himself, and the smile he wore walking away was thinner than the one he'd arrived with. Thaddeus's phone buzzed at 9:30. He stepped to the edge of the terrace, away from the music, and read the message from Desmond twice. Charlotte attorney confirmed. Initial fraud filing submitted today. Paper trail is clean. Prenup enforcement docs ready for your signature tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Priscilla's authorized user access will terminate on execution. Everything is in place. Thaddeus read it once more. Then he put the phone back in his pocket. He stood there for a moment, looking out at the dark water, listening to the steel drum behind him and the quiet pull of the waves below. He finished his drink. He said goodnight to Odessa and Gerald and shook a few more hands. He did it all without hurrying. His suite was cool and quiet. He set his phone on the nightstand, face up, and sat on the edge of the bed. He wasn't restless. He wasn't anxious. He had a few hours until morning, and everything that needed to be ready was ready. He turned off the light. Down the hall, behind a different door, Priscilla lay in the dark, alone. The resort's policy separated unmarried guests in certain suite arrangements, and for the first time all trip, Reginald was in a separate room. She stared at the ceiling. She didn't know why she couldn't sleep. She told herself it was nothing. She turned over. She closed her eyes. The garden sat on the east side of the resort, tucked between the main building and a row of sea grape trees. White folding chairs were already arranged in neat rows facing the floral arch. The caterers were moving quietly in the background, adjusting centerpieces, straightening linens. The ceremony didn't start for 2 hours. Thaddeus had chosen the spot on purpose. He asked the concierge to pass the message to Priscilla and Reginald separately. Brief meeting, the East Garden, before the ceremony. Routine. He kept the word routine in there deliberately. He didn't want them to run. Not yet. Willow was already seated on a low stone bench near the garden entrance when he arrived, a cup of tea balanced on her knee, her church hat on despite the hour. She didn't say anything when Thaddeus sat beside her. She just looked at him with those steady eyes of hers and gave a small nod, like something long overdue was finally arriving on schedule. Odessa came 2 minutes later. She looked nervous, smoothing the front of her robe. "You sure about this?" she asked him quietly. "It's my wedding morning, Thaddeus." "I know," he said. "That's why it ends here, and not somewhere you can't control." She held his gaze for a moment. Then she sat down across from him. Priscilla arrived first, wearing a silk wrap and her hair half-pinned, still getting ready. She looked around the garden, clocked Odessa and Willa, and her expression shifted from irritated to cautious. "What is this?" she said. "Sit down, Priscilla," Thaddeus said. His voice was even. No heat in it at all. She didn't sit, but she didn't leave either. She crossed her arms and stood near the garden path, watching him. Reginald came a minute behind her, dressed for the ceremony already. Crisp white shirt, linen blazer. He stopped when he saw the group. His eyes moved quick. Thaddeus, then Odessa, then the older woman on the bench, then back to Thaddeus. Something in his shoulders pulled tight. Then Gerald stepped into the garden from the opposite entrance. Reginald saw him, and something shifted behind his eyes. He took a small step back toward the path. "Stay put," Gerald said. His voice was quiet, but it had weight behind it. The kind that didn't need to be loud to mean something. He had his phone in his hand and he was not smiling. Reginald stayed. Thaddeus set his phone face up on the garden table between them. On the screen was the itinerary. 2 names, 1 king bed, 2 first-class tickets to Providenciales. He'd screenshotted it the morning he found it. "I found this on the home tablet," he said. "The day after you told me I wasn't invited." Priscilla's jaw tightened. "Thaddeus, if you want to do this, I'm already doing it." She shut her mouth. "You told your family for years that I refused to contribute to events," he continued. "That I was cheap. That I didn't show up because I didn't care." He looked at Odessa when he said it. "She never passed along most of the invitations. I found that out from you, Odessa. This weekend." Odessa nodded once, her face tight. "Thaddeus, this is not the time." Priscilla started, and her voice cracked towards something tearful, a door swinging open. She was good at that. He had seen it many times. He didn't follow her through it. "Faye told me what you said to her," he said. "That Daddy doesn't love them enough to come to nice things. He let that land. She's 9 years old, Priscilla, and she believes it, because you told her." Priscilla's face went still. The tears didn't come after that. He turned to Reginald. "Charlotte," he said. "One word." Reginald's chin came up. "My attorney located the woman you borrowed $60,000 from before you disappeared," Thaddeus said. "Her attorney filed fraud paperwork yesterday. Gerald received the same information this morning." He glanced at Gerald, who confirmed it with a look. "Whatever you came here to find this weekend, you won't be finding it." Reginald's mouth opened. He closed it again. "I have a lawyer," he started. "Good," Thaddeus said. "You're going to need one." Priscilla looked at Reginald then, really looked at him, maybe for the first time. Whatever she saw there didn't seem to reassure her. She turned back to Thaddeus, and for a moment, her face moved through something complicated. Anger, embarrassment, the particular panic of someone who has spent years building a version of the truth and is watching it come apart board by board in front of the exact people whose opinion she cared most about. "You can't just," she said. "I didn't yell," Thaddeus said simply. "I didn't call anyone. I waited. I showed up." He picked up his phone from the table. "And I told the truth." The silence that followed had a weight to it. From somewhere beyond the garden hedge, the first sounds of arriving guests drifted in. Voices, heels on stone, the soft laughter of people dressed for a celebration. The ceremony would begin soon. Odessa's wedding was still happening. Priscilla stood in the middle of the garden, surrounded by the family whose opinion she had spent 11 years carefully, deliberately shaping. Her lips parted once. Nothing came out. Gerald Vance did not raise his voice. That was the thing about him. Odessa had mentioned it once, early in their courtship, the way her fiancé handled problems, not with volume, but with precision. He was a man who had built a logistics empire of his own, who had sat across from port authorities and trade lawyers and union heads for 30 years. He knew exactly how much words could cost. He found Reginald near the South Terrace 40 minutes before the ceremony. Thaddeus wasn't there for it. He didn't need to be. He heard about it later from Odessa's younger brother-in-law, Marcus, who had been standing close enough to catch every word. Gerald had simply walked up to Reginald with his phone extended, the fraud filing visible on the screen, and said, "I need you off this property before my daughter walks down that aisle." Reginald had tried to smile through it. That was his reflex, the easy grin, the smooth pivot. He started to say something about misunderstandings, about context, about how he'd be happy to clear things up over a drink after the ceremony. Gerald cut him off. "There won't be a drink," he said, "and there won't be an after." 2 of the resort's security staff appeared at Gerald's shoulder. Not roughly, just present, the way a closed door is present. Reginald looked at them. He looked at Gerald. He looked toward the garden where the guests were beginning to fill the white chairs, the floral arch bright against the morning sky, laughter rising from the rows. No one there was looking back at him. No one was coming to help. He picked up his bag from his room and was gone within the hour. News moved the way it always does at weddings, through whispers between dressed-up people holding champagne flutes, through raised eyebrows and quiet asides behind programs. By the time the processional music started, most of the guests within Gerald's circle knew the outline. The man Priscilla Boone had brought as her guest had a fraud filing in Charlotte. He'd done it before. He'd come here hoping to do it again. The story didn't need embellishment. The facts were enough. Thaddeus sat in the third row. Faye pressed warm against his side, her small hand wrapped around two of his fingers. She was wearing a yellow dress with white buttons down the front. Yarn. She had already dropped her flower crown twice and was very serious about keeping it on now, both hands raised to her head every few minutes to check. He watched the aisle. He didn't look for Priscilla. She was in the wedding party, Odessa's only sister, maid of honor by title. She stood at the front in her dusty rose dress, bouquet in hand, face arranged into something composed and careful, the way a person looks when they are working very hard not to show how much they are breaking. Odessa didn't look at her much. That was the thing Thaddeus noticed. Not cruelty in it. Odessa wasn't that kind of woman. But a bride on her wedding morning looks at the people she loves most with something open, something free. She looked at Gerald that way. She looked at her mother that way. She looked at Faye, who had dropped the crown again and broke into a real smile. She looked at Priscilla, the way you look at a window with the blinds drawn. Polite. Closed. Priscilla held her bouquet and stood straight and did not cry during the vows, though her jaw was tight enough that it probably hurt. Thaddeus didn't gloat. There was nothing satisfying in watching her stand there, diminished and alone, among the people whose good opinion she had spent years engineering. He had done what needed doing. He had told the truth. He had laid the facts down one after another, in the right room at the right time, and then he had stepped back and let them work. That was all. That was enough. Faye leaned up and whispered in his ear, "Is Mommy okay?" He looked down at her. Her flower crown was crooked. "She will be," he said quietly. He straightened the crown with one hand. "She's just having a hard day." Faye seemed to accept this. She turned back to watch Odessa and Gerald exchange rings. The reception was warm and loud, and full of the particular joy that comes from two people who actually like each other standing up in front of everyone and saying so out loud. Faye danced until her shoes came off. Willa drank 2 glasses of champagne and declared the crab cakes the best thing she had eaten in 6 years. Thaddeus stayed until the cake was cut. Then he found Priscilla, on the far edge of the terrace, alone for the first time all evening, her heels in one hand, her eyes fixed on the dark water beyond the railing. He walked over and stood beside her. She didn't look at him. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then he said, "You signed a prenuptial agreement 11 years ago." She turned. Something in her face moved, a flicker of disbelief, or maybe the first edge of understanding arriving somewhere she hadn't been looking. "You barely had anything when we got married," she said. "It didn't seem like it mattered." "I know," Thaddeus said. "That's exactly what I needed you to think." She looked at him for a long moment. The water moved behind her, dark and slow, catching the light from the terrace lanterns in long, broken ribbons. The music from inside drifted out between them. Something slow now, the late-night songs, the ones that play when most of the grandparents have sat down. "How much?" she asked. "Not much," Thaddeus said. "The house has equity. You'll get half of that. The joint account. Your car." He paused. "That's it." Her mouth opened slightly. "That's it. The business is protected. The holdings, the accounts attached to them, the property held under the company. All of it. The prenup covers it completely." He said it without pleasure. Just the facts, same as he'd done all morning. Desmond will send the full breakdown to your attorney next week. He'll handle everything from here. She turned back to the water. He watched her try to do the math in her head. He could see it. The way her eyes moved slightly, the small tightening around her mouth, as the numbers refused to come out the way she needed them to. "I didn't even know you had an attorney," she said quietly. "I know. 11 years. Her voice was flat. Not angry anymore. Something past anger. Emptied out. Like a room after the furniture has been taken. "I thought I knew what our life was worth." "You knew what I let you see," he said. "That's not the same thing." She didn't argue with that. Maybe she couldn't. "Faye," he said, "I'm going to pursue primary custody. Desmond has documentation. Your work hours, your travel patterns, the things you told her about me." He kept his voice steady, not cold, just clear. "I'm not trying to take her from you, but I am going to make sure she's with someone who is present, consistently." Priscilla's throat moved. For one moment he thought she might fight it, find the old reflex, the sharp pivot, the way she could reframe any room she stood in. But there was no room left to reframe. The family whose opinion she had polished for years was 40 feet away, dancing, and none of them were watching the door for her. She pressed her heels against her side. "Okay," she said. Just that. One word. Small and without color. Thaddeus nodded once. Then he walked back inside. 18 months is a long time and no time at all. Thaddeus stopped hiding. It was the simplest way to put it. The name Theodore Journey Boone, which had lived for years only on company filings and wire transfers, and the deed to a building in Houston, started appearing in other places. An interview in a trade publication, a profile in a regional business journal, modest, factual, the kind of piece that said the numbers without spectacle. Friends he'd kept at arm's length for years found out, and stopped being surprised eventually, the way people do. Odessa called him once a week, sometimes twice. She came to visit in October with Gerald and their new puppy, and Faye spent an entire afternoon trying to teach the dog to sit, and Willa declared the visit too loud and enjoyed every minute of it. The house was different now, fuller, louder in the right ways. Faye was in 5th grade. She had her father's eyes and her own very particular opinions about everything, which she stated plainly and without apology. She had joined the school's math club and quit it after 2 weeks because, she explained, the other kids weren't taking it seriously enough. Thaddeus had kept a straight face for approximately 4 seconds before he laughed. He coached her soccer team on Saturdays. He drove a better car now, though not a flashy one. He'd never seen the point. He still took calls in the garage sometimes, out of habit mostly, or maybe because he liked the quiet. Priscilla he saw at drop-offs and pickups, polite and brief. She had taken a job at a larger real estate firm in the city. She worked long hours. She looked, when he saw her, like someone in the middle of a very long climb, tired but moving. He wished her no harm. He wished her nothing, really. He had stopped wishing her things a long time ago. Reginald appeared in his news feed once, briefly. A woman in Savannah. A business loan with no business behind it. The filing was public and the details were familiar, almost word for word, like a script he kept using because it had worked before and he hadn't yet understood that it had stopped working. Thaddeus read the headline. Then he put his phone down and went to start dinner. That evening, Faye sat on the kitchen counter the way she always did when she wanted to talk, feet swinging, watching him move around the stove. "Daddy," she said. How come you never told anybody you were rich?" He stirred the pot once and looked over at her. She was watching him with that direct, steady look she'd had since she was small, the kind of look that expected a real answer and would absolutely know if she didn't get one. He thought about it. He set the spoon down. "Because I wanted someone to love me for who I was," he said. "Not for what I had." She thought about this with the full seriousness she gave most things. "And now?" she asked. He looked at her. Her flower crown was long gone, but she was here, feet swinging, waiting. "Now," he said, "I am." I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.